y'all doing today? I'm Big Fella, and you are now watching Talking with Big Fella. And we got a series coming up. There's something important going on in this city right now at a crucial time in Nashville. We have a mighty mayoral race, right? So you might have seen on the news, or you might have seen clips, or you see signs around, all these different people running. And we wanted to sit down with the candidates and just have a real conversation. I'm not too deep into the politics and get all weird, but I'm a people person, and I figure I'm just like y'all. We're going to find out who the people are and get to know the people. And first and foremost came through my guy. What district are you the councilman of now?
19.
Councilman of District 19 right now, who's running for mayor. Y'all give it up for my man and yours, Freddie O'Connell.
Look, I couldn't be happier to be here. I mean, we have talked, but we haven't talked at this desk with that sign.
I know,
it's
it's
good.
wild, ain't it? It's pretty cool.
Good.
It's pretty good, man. First off, thank you so much for coming through. I know she said that y'all already done like 10 or something events this week or something.
Well, so since the race kind of began in earnest when you could start to see who was qualifying a few months back, and now, I mean, this week I think we're 5 deep just as I sit here today. I've already been to a forum this morning.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, we are certainly seeing the community wake up and begin being curious about the folks who are running, and so I take every opportunity I can to be in front of voters, because to your point, I mean, politics does get weird.
It's super weird, super weird. I was telling them, I was like, politics is the last frontier where you can be a straight weirdo, you could be racist, you could be sexist. You can't do that at a corporate job, you'll get canceled. You can't do it as an entertainer, you get canceled. You can sell 1 million records and say the wrong thing and get canceled. But in them houses, them state houses and all that, you could kind of get real crazy.
Now, I will say, I think this is one of the reasons I've always focused on local politics. It's closest to the people, and I think that means my constituents, they know my cell phone number, right? And so I'm accountable to them, right? It's not like I just go off for 4 months far from where I live and, can say some crazy things, and maybe somebody's forgotten by the time they see me again.
Yeah.
We try to keep it real.
Yeah, that's super real. All right, so starting out, Freddie O'Connell. The people watching, man, they just want to know basics, man. Where you from? You got brothers and sisters. What'd you do? Your first job? Let's start there. Where you from?
So I grew up here.
Okay.
I've got one brother. He's 3.5 years younger than me, and he is now, I wish we could get him back, but he's up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. He got a good, he's a professor, and it's interesting. He came out of the world of high school theater and stuck with it, and now he is a theater studies professor. And I went a different direction. I studied computer science and kind of came back here after college to work in the software and technology industry.
So you're a big brother.
Yep.
See, that's the things people need to know. Everybody knows how big brothers get down.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I loved it. I loved being, a pair of brothers. We were far enough apart in age where we could have our own set of friends, but close enough that we could do a lot of things together. Right? And we played a lot of sports together.
So y'all like high school, y'all at the same school for a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Okay. So,
yeah.
All right, man. So tell me this, from technology and doing all of that to being a city council person, like what made you even get into all of this part? Like what was that spark?
So, I think it's interesting because even when I got to college, you could find the kids that were there to study computers, a lot of them had just been in their room with a computer for a long time.
Yeah.
And so they were hackers.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, but I also thought a whole lot of things were interesting. And so actually when I was in college, I wound up sort of not the part that wasn't planned was I got a music degree too.
Really?
Yeah. So
what you play?
Piano badly. I mean, I'm not a performer, but I thought all of the parts of theory and composition were interesting. And it was really great to think about how you make music and how you look at the history of music, not just in the Western world, but across the globe. And getting to have, I mean, it's like putting the rest of history in context when you start to look at the cultural impact and how arts and music are both related to what we think of as history, but they inform it and they respond to it, and it's so interesting. So I loved being able to do that. And I think the same thing, I came back here for a job. But I had a lot of friends here, and eventually I, started working with people that were based on my lived experience, because I had agreed with my parents when I went to college. I was going to work all the way through. They'd use that to help pay tuition. And on the back end, I would pick up any student debt. And so that was our agreement, and it worked out really well. But I wanted to pay that debt off as fast as I could. So I was back here living with my girlfriend. We were sharing a car because I did not have a car. And I was reluctant to buy a car because cars are expensive when you're 20-something and you're in your first job. And I'll go back to that one because that's another interesting thing that's related to some other stuff we'll talk about, the very first job I had in Nashville. But so she decided she was going to pursue her childhood dream of going to be a physician, and she had to go get some pre-medical credits to do that. And she went back up to the Northeast to do it and left her car here. Well, I paid off my undergraduate loans while she was gone. I did it aggressively as quickly as I could. It was like one of my personal finance focuses, and as soon as I did, the car broke down.
Ain't that how it goes?
Ain't that how it goes? So there I am, and I'm figuring out how to be in Nashville without a car. And it turned out to be one of the best experiences I ever had, because you learn a lot about time management. You learn a lot about planning. You learn a lot about constraints. But I lived just off of Centennial Park, right by 3 bike shops, walked across the street to Cumberland Transit, picked up a Trek 7100, did not need a car note for that. I could just, that I could afford. Realized that every bus in the fleet had a bike rack on it, so I could expand my range. Figured out the bus maps, because this was before we had smartphones with all of that trip planning, and now I can tell where every bus is. I can know when I have to get to the bus stop. I couldn't do that back then. I knew exactly how many groceries would fit in my backpack. But that got me thinking hard about public policy. And so it wasn't but a few years later that Mayor Dean invited me to participate in civic life formally by appointing me to the Nashville MTA Board of Directors. And so I got to take all of that ridership experience, all of that experience of what it was like to be in Nashville without a car, and apply it to policy. And that was great. Meanwhile, those 3.5 years that turned into, you learn very quickly what the implicit tax we impose upon Nashvillians for owning a car is, because I lived it. I saved $8,000 a year, and that is the average cost of owning, maintaining, fueling, and insuring a car. And by the end of 3.5 years, you know what I had? I had a down payment for a house, because I had kept my debt off. I was using that period of being car free to save money more quickly than I had ever saved it in my life. And we bought a house in Salem Town. Why did we buy in Salem Town? Because Whitney had come back. She had gotten into Meharry Medical College for med school. We had to be close enough to campus for her to walk, bike, or take a bus, because we bought a house before either one of us was back in a car.
Right down Jefferson.
And it turns out transit is affordable housing.
Yeah, see, that was a lot of moving parts to get back to the same thing right there. So transit then, right? Let's get to transit, man. So you were around and doing your council thing when that transit thing came through, and I often say that people can't see the future, right? You can't see it until it's by the time you realize you need something, it's kind of too late. It's like you got to be thinking ahead of the time, but we didn't know. As a city, we didn't know. Is it possible, and I know I'm just jumping straight in on transit because we went there, but is it possible? Did we miss the boat on the light rail and all of that?
No, I guess what I would say is, I was just at a meeting with Pastor Fuzz over at his church, Corinthian Baptist, and he was having a meeting of his One Nashville group. And Ronnie Mitchell, another local pastor, was there, and he got up and he said, basically, how soon is it too late?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And my answer to him that morning was not yet.
Okay.
And we have to work, and we have to work urgently. But the good news is there is work we can do urgently. In fact, when that transit plan was coming up, MTA put on all of our desks a 3-year work plan. Well, we're just scratching the surface on it right now. And it's the kind of thing that would make it possible for, in this city, the communities that are going to use transit to have a community transit center. We just built one in Green Hills. We've got one under construction in North Nashville.
Yep.
We could put one on the East Bank,
Yeah.
put one in South Nashville where we have a lot of public land now. We can put one south of Broadway where we already have the land and the plan. We just didn't use this immediate past opportunity to do it. When I'm mayor, we're going to go do that. We're going to execute that work plan. And then what you're going to have is crosstown routes so that from my history, where you had to go into downtown and back out again. And if you're doing that twice a day, that's a very expensive double V.
And the time.
The time. Now, if I can go straight from North Nashville to Green Hills, or straight from Green Hills to Antioch, or straight from Hermitage
That's
into,
what the hubs are.
That's what those are. So then you get crosstown.
Okay.
And we grew in the 8 years that I've been on Metro Council from a $2 billion city to a $3 billion city. And it doesn't cost but a tiny little fraction of that to do those immediate term things. Now, I do think we want to come back and have a conversation about dedicated funding because we're the last major American city that doesn't have it. You know what? As a last major American city that just happened to us that we found out this week, we fell more than 30 positions on the U.S. News and World Report in terms of best places to live because we're not focusing on livability here. That's what I want to focus on. The Nashville I'm trying to build is the one for Nashvillians.
So you think it's possible because Nashville is a big event town. They've been working on this for a long time, and it's like that ball is rolling. You know what I'm saying? It's already snowballed into whatever. Is it possible to have this big event town and still like a Nashville for the Nashvillians? Is
Absolutely. And so here's a great example that just happened. Taylor Swift just did 3 big shows down at the existing stadium.
Yeah.
And you know what we didn't do? We didn't run the Star, our commuter railroad line. We didn't run it for folks in Donaldson or Hermitage or the folks in Mount Juliet or Lebanon. You know why?
I was just about to ask.
Nobody said this is a priority, and you know how much it would have cost to run it? A sponsor would have had to come up with $6,000 per day. For $6,000, we could have put hundreds of our folks who are Taylor Swift fans, because she is from here.
All the way.
You know, we could have put them on that train and gotten them to that show.
So a lot of this stuff is just nobody's thinking about it?
Priorities. It's about priorities and preparedness. And
so it's like all this is happening to us, really, and we kind of, it's real time to everybody. It's happening to us. Even on y'all level, like as a council and mayor's office and all that?
So some of us are focused on this. And this is what my track record of community-oriented results is all about. And that's why I'm trying to take the successes we've had in District 19 as a template for what we want to do citywide. And most often that is a very people-oriented approach to how we think about policy.
Man, that's so real. That's so real. Let me see. I wrote a couple notes down, man. Let me see what's good one on here.
Now, I'll come back to one other thing, though, because I think this is also fun. Because it does tie into what makes, I think, community access television so fun. The first job I had in Nashville was the old Great Escape on Broadway.
Really?
Yeah. It is now a Two Boots Pizza, which is a little bit heartbreaking when I go over there. Because, I mean, look, our older daughter, for a while, we couldn't do anything on a Friday night other than go get a slice of cheese, a cookie, and a lemonade at Two Boots Pizza. That was, it was like her
Two Boots got
first
a tasty
daughter.
pizza,
I
too.
mean, so it's good. But my brother and I both worked over at the Great Escape on Broadway.
Great Escape.
Mm-hmm.
You look like a record store dude.
Well,
did you have longer hair?
By the time I got to college, I did. No, I mean, when I was younger, it was maybe a little longer than this. There was definitely a college age. Yeah, there was a little bit longer hair then.
You're kind of like a Nashville Wayne from Wayne's World almost. If you had the long hair.
That's amazing. I've never heard anybody say that.
I can see it.
You could certainly make a case for that. I mean, we had a lot of fun doing that, though. And it ties into this because there was so much culture in that store. And some of those people knew all about the power of community access, right?
Yeah.
And That was back in the day when I was watching The Bat Poet. Right?
Yeah.
And so my favorite thing about coming over here today was
Bat
knowing
Poet.
that the archive is there and that we're digitizing it, and it sounds like setting up for something even more interesting.
Man, we are setting up for something more interesting. If we can get a administration, man, that got love for Kneecat over here, man, we can keep this thing going. You know what But I'm not here to
Wait,
I'm not
is
here
that
to
a
lobby.
soapbox you're sitting on?
I'm not here to lobby for Kneecat, man. I'm just saying what it is. All right, so another question. Speaking about Kneecat and public access, Great Escape. All right, being Music City, and I think personally, the reason all these company stuff want to be here is because when you come here, it's got that vibe of that creative vibe that draws people in, you know, and you could lose a lot if we get once the Oracle people get here, you get all the Oracle, straightforward, I'm stuck in the computer dudes to get here. It's easy to lose the cool if you're not thinking about it ahead of time, right? So
Yeah.
as far as like the creative community and the music people and the content creators, and we got some amazing creative people here that are not just Nashville amazing, they're amazing in the whole world. They just live here.
Yeah.
And they would love to, like I always say, like real creative people, man, all they want to do is like make cool shit with their friends, And we can do that here in Nashville, but it's almost like it's feeling like it's not the place. You can't be a starving artist here anymore, really. Or it's
harder
it's
than
really
it used
hard.
to be.
You gotta really, really want to. It's gotta be a specific thing, and that getting lost. Like even the funding of places like this, which are like watering holes for young and older creative people, and just thinking that moving forward. I'm really into the future. I love the future because it can be whatever we need it to be if we walk that way. But it's looking like it's kind of like, I don't know if anybody really cares as much as we say we do. It's in the brand name,
So I had somebody tell me recently one of the things they're concerned about, and this was somebody who had spent some time in San Francisco, and they said, we got to watch out to not become a playground. And the playground scenario is where you have to be very wealthy to be able to experience it, and you're experiencing the things that got built as a part of the playground. But the people that are the creative class, they're the ones putting the playground equipment there. And if you don't keep room in the city for them, you're missing something critical. Now, there's some good news here. I have some colleagues on Metro Council, Jeff Syracuse, Joy Stiles, who worked on this commission process that I think is going to do some good things. It's going to mean, I hope, and again, strong mayoral leadership will help with this, we put some more city emphasis on the idea of film and TV production. That's good news. We have a lot of raw material here to do that. We've had people producing country music videos and other things for a long time. We've got a lot of people that are influencers doing YouTube and all this kind of stuff, and that we should leverage that. We're watching Atlanta create the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'd love a day, as a guy who worked in a comic book shop, to have some of the Marvel Cinematic Universe coming out of Nashville, right? We've got performance in there. We've got music in there. That's good. So the city having an investment in that creative class is important. Now, the leadership piece, though, has to get the livability piece right. That is everything from transit and affordable housing, but also affordable space for production, for performance, for makers, because we've got this incredible base of talent from the fashion industry to creative industry. And it's like people doing industrial stuff at small scale that you don't need, a giant warehouse, but you do need some place to do building, right? To bring wiring and welding and all that stuff together. And that stuff is part of the comprehensive approach that will let our creative class continue to thrive. And it is. I mean, some of it is at risk right now.
Yeah, we're putting together kind of man, I'm really into this ecosystem thing, right? Read this book called The Rainforest, basically like the secret to building next Silicon Valley, but it's all really about you need talent, ideas, and capital. If you got them three things, you can do anything, and if you can get them working together right. And I think Nashville is an interesting ecosystem. We got all the stuff, it's just not But it is kind of working together. But it's just having like a focus of that, like, okay, let's do this. And through all of that, we're gonna do, instead of people, I think Nashville people, our story a lot gets told by people coming in telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
We don't tell our own story.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody from LA come in and do a show about what they think Nashville is. And we're putting together something that's really by Nashville, for Nashville, telling Nashville stories with Nashville as the set, the city as the set, but it's done by people who live here, work here, you know, it's Nashville actors, cast, crew, all of that. And man, we need you to come make a cameo, man. Once you're the mayor, man, you just come make a cameo. You could be working at the Sitco or something. You could do whatever you want to do. You know? Whatever you want to do. But
I will be happy to drop by.
Yeah. Okay, what's another one of my things, man? Freddie, you all right, man. I like you, man. Every time, you all right with me for real. Like I was saying, a lot of politics is not really the home of the coolest people ever, you know? They sprinkled in there. You pretty damn cool.
It is hard to be grounded, but this is one thing that I've always appreciated about, at least to this moment. I've never been a career politician. I mean, until just a few weeks ago, I was working full time. To me, it has been good to be grounded and to experience all of those things that everybody else experiences, right? My parents saw the value of education for me and my brother. They made sure we had those opportunities and could pursue them on our own terms. They set us up for the successes we could then go secure for ourselves. And I think my brother and I both were able to take that educational opportunity and then convert it into, you know, not a get rich quick scenario, but look, our parents were working class trying to enter middle class, and they gave us the tools, I hope, to, you know, create a future in America's middle class. And I want more people to have that opportunity.
Were your parents from here too?
My mom grew up
came here?
in Dixon, Tennessee, so not too far away.
Not too far.
But by the time she was in high school, the family had moved increasingly closer to town, like moved from Dixon. I think maybe their first place within the city limits, and I guess Metro had just started up. They were in Davidson County out on Vaughn's Gap, and in that time, that was almost like the country.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then they moved in closer to town. My dad was actually from PG County, Maryland, outside of D.C., and they met in college out at Washington University in St. Louis. But then my mom came back here to go to Vanderbilt to get her master's in foreign language, and she was a teacher for 40 years.
Yeah.
So she taught foreign language.
All right, that's real. All right, let me see. We got probably looks like about 5-6 minutes left, man. We're spending this time with Freddie O'Connell, man. We really appreciate you coming through
I
here,
love
man.
the opportunity to be
here.
here.
This is super cool. What's another good question, man? One basic question, something simple. So, the state, right? I know, I'm wondering because everybody talk about, even with the stadium deal, I don't know if it's whole East Bank, but even with the stadium thing, it was like,
It got complicated.
yeah, and it like the state put a lot into it. The state put more into it than the city is putting into it. From what, is this true?
No. The state's putting $500 million in. In fact, they're putting the least in. And somehow they decided, despite the fact that they're the party putting the least into it, that justified even more overreach. And so they took away some of our local control. They said, hey, that $500 million is going to buy us 6 seats on your sports authority, which is crazy because we're putting in $3.5 billion as Nashville.
Wow. How many seats are there on the sports authority?
There are 13 seats. So we have a 1-seat majority left.
Wow.
So state intervention in what we're doing is one of the most challenging things Nashville is confronting right now. And this is what was so frustrating to me about that negotiation is it didn't seem like the process of pushback, the process of protecting ourselves. We never acted like y'all need to back off a little, or we're not gonna proceed until we get some clear signs that you do. That just, as a negotiation, it just seemed like we were negotiating against ourselves too often. But the state piece is gonna be hard because think about Nashvillians are 10% of Tennesseans.
Yeah.
And we are not treated like the economic engine. We are not treated like the creative center of the state. And I mean, look, I know Memphis is a big deal too. And, Knoxville is home to UT, and Chattanooga is in many ways a more successful river city than Nashville has become. But Nashville drives, even out of the district I represent, so much of the city and state revenue. And I think we need to use the mayor's office fundamentally to protect our interests by investing in ourselves instead of focusing on a destination economy that allows the state to take 7 cents on every dollar that gets spent by a tourist and go invest it in things around the state. Yeah. I'm happy to have some of that success, but people are going to keep coming to Nashville. And right now, we're missing out on those livability elements. And the biggest thing I'm hearing as I go around the city is the same thing I've been hearing in my own backyard, which is I couldn't believe it. Starting a year or two ago, as we started to emerge from COVID, I know people started to think about big life changes they could make, and COVID had that impact. But more recently, as that's not people's top concern, and we see the state behaving this way, and we see the state attacking, like being hostile to LGBT communities and communities of color, and just fundamentally women, period. People are telling me they want to leave, and I'm half of the reason. I mean, a big part of what the premise of what I'm working toward, a Nashville for Nashvillians, is because I want people to stay.
Yeah, I hear a lot of that too. I've heard a lot since then. It's like pretty wild. Okay, this might be too heavy of a question for 2 minutes left. When I was in Detroit, I was working on being part of like Detroit Future Cities, and they had like the most beautiful 50-year document framework of the city. Yep. Everybody came together. All the stakeholders were part of it, from the businesses to the community groups to the metro departments. Everybody kind of worked on it. It was beautiful. Mm-hmm. And in this, because Detroit was a historically black city, I guess at least the last 40 years, there were, in the plan, there were neighborhoods and pockets of thriving black communities, because I guess you can't have a Detroit without black people in the plan.
Right.
And I come here and I'm like, does Nashville have to have black people? Detroit was historically black. Does Nashville have to? And if so, we need to put it somewhere in a plan or something. It's like,
I mean, how could we not? Nashville, I mean, I'm one of the proudest parts of my representation of District 19 is that I've had the opportunity to represent even a stretch of Jefferson Street. Yeah. Right? Now, Jefferson Street carries with it one of Nashville's worst scars, which is that I-40 tore right through there and ended a whole generation of amazing cultural legacy. But one of the best parts about Nashville right now is one of the newest cultural institutions we created is the National Museum of African American Music. When we did Nashville Next, our 25-year general plan, one of the most important things that happened was the planning department went out into communities that don't often get their voice given back to them and was actively solicitous. I was at a meeting at Hadley Park, what is now Hadley Lillard Park, at the community center out there. Yeah. And it was amazing to see people invited in to come participate in that. Now, we need to revisit that. We're about to hit the 10-year mark, and we need to be able to answer those questions. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't do a Nashville without the cultural legacy of our incredible folks in the black community that have been a part of building Music City itself is from the Fifth Jubilee Singers.
All right, look, we're going to talk about this after you've been watching Talking with Big Fella, Freddie O'Connell. We out, y'all.